Your sonic solution for de-escalating stress. Sacramento Smooth Jazz.
Welcome back to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. I'm thrilled today to have a special guest, as I've been talking about. We have Tony Guerrero, the masterful trumpeter and flugelhorn musician, composer, producer for over 35 years, even longer, of course. And he's been creating Billboard chart hits, not with just his own creative projects, but also others have been calling upon him to lend his gift into their projects. He's worked with television and film soundtracks, and he has performed and recorded with countless artists such as Richard Elliott, Pete Escovedo, Freddie Herbert, Billy Idol, Boney James, Kirk Franklin even, the Jonas Brothers, Greg Karukas, Jeff Kashiwa, Dave Koz, Ronnie Laws, Melissa Manchester, Jeff Lorber, Michael Lincoln, just to name a fraction of the individuals that he has worked with over the years, over the decades. And he is with us today to just discuss some things and to share with you, our listeners, a little bit more about him. Tony, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm thrilled for you to give us a few minutes of your time today. And I want to just kind of go over a couple of things. You have done a number of different projects. I've listened to a number of your projects, and I love the fact that they don't all sound alike. They, like wine, there's different nodes of flavors, in every project.
That's good to hear. I'll tell you, when I was starting out, that was a tough thing because even within an album, I would go from style to style on the, from track to track, everything would be different. So some people didn't like that. Like record companies had a hard time knowing how to market something that was, had a Latin tune and then a jazz tune and then a pop tune, and, usually when you put on a record, you're expecting one thing. So it was a blessing and a curse, but I definitely have a lot of varied interests. And I always figure every project's going to be my last one. So I got to get as much in there as I can.
I understand that. Now, one of the things too, one of the tracks that really did you well, and Quincy Jones cover you did, Secret Garden.
Right.
And I noticed that crossed over into the urban radio market.
It did.
And you got a nod on the Soul Train Music Awards for that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to remember back. We weren't I don't know that we actually got into the final nominations, but the fact that we were even being considered was pretty exciting because that was first of all, I loved that tune when that came out on Quincy's Back on the Block album. I think that was 89 that came out.
Yeah.
90, maybe 90. Yeah. And man, I wore that track out. And when I got a chance to record it and, get Gerald Albright on it, I was just so excited about that track. And then I remember down here in LA at the time, there was a station, an R&B station called KACE. And, I was kind of at that point, I was used to hearing my tunes on jazz radio. And then I remember a friend called me and he was listening to that station. He said, man, they're playing you when they just finished playing Janet Jackson and now they're playing you. So that was pretty exciting.
I remember back then hearing that. And honestly, I'm going to just confess.
Yeah.
There was a young lady friend that I was thinking I was doing, some great things with. And then that came on, the jazzy version. I'm like, oh, well, let me turn this up because this is just really adds to the flavor of the mood here.
Right.
So it helped me, but it was on a different station and it really caught the attention of not just myself, but my colleagues. So this was to receive a nod, for that on the Soul Train Music Awards is phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I want to talk about, because of your love for the trumpet, it has taken you to being a collector of memorabilia, particularly Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, well, my trajectory in music, like I started off as a kid listening to the first horn player that captured my attention was Chuck Mangione. So, and he's, as far as like smooth jazz goes, he's like one of the icons that helped start it all, Feel So Good back in the 70s. And so as a kid, I got really into him. And from him, I started learning who influenced him, like Dizzy Gillespie and Art Farmer. And then as I started to keep going back, you can't, everything begins with Louis Armstrong. And as I've learned over the years, not just the trumpet players, but every single pop singer in every genre from R&B to hip hop to jazz to whatever. It all traces back to the innovations he did, both as a trumpet player and as a singer and as a pop singer. He changed the music world. So it was not surprising that I would just get really enraptured by him. And I just, at one point, started collecting little bits of memorabilia from him, and then I just got obsessed with that for a while. And so I have met a few other collectors over the years, and there are some people like on the East Coast, actually recently passed, but Jack Bradley, who was a friend of his. There are people who were close to him who have big collections. And for a non-personal friend of Armstrong, I have a pretty large collection of memorabilia in my home that I just love. I just sit there and stare at it sometimes. And I just watched the new documentary a couple nights ago that's out on Apple TV. That's Ron Howard produced on Louis Armstrong, and it's just beautiful. What an artist he was.
With you knowing the history, I understand. I have come to the knowledge that you occasionally play one of his trumpets during your shows.
I have been known to do that. I did get a chance to go to his archives in Queens and actually play on 3 of his main trumpets that he used over the years. And that was, you can see a video of that on YouTube somewhere, and you can hear it in my playing. I'm shaking as I'm playing these horns. But there is a friend of mine who is a club owner here in LA who inherited one of his horns. It wasn't one he played a whole lot, but it was one he gave away as a gift to another actor, and then it just kept finding its way to new hands. And so he has loaned that to me on occasion when I've had a show that it would be, a nice moment to bring out Louis Armstrong's horn. And so I've been really lucky to be able to do that.
Wow, what an honor, what a blessing to have that. I can only imagine as you're playing it, the emotion that you perhaps may feel to have that in your hands and be able to put your gift to that.
Yeah, it's inspiring. And, nobody can make it sound like he did, and that's that. In fact, when I pick up one of his horns and I play on it, it's really clear to me how much the individual has to do with, even a great instrument. Like the player itself is going to make all the difference in how it sounds. So, I can't even explain how you could go about getting a sound like him. It's just, he had his own, and it was just amazing.
We've come out of this pandemic, it's just a lot of us are talking about it. We've had to make adjustments. No doubt a lot of musicians had to make adjustments. Concerts and shows just stopped abruptly. So many things have been happening. What did you find yourself doing during this whole process?
Well, I was lucky that I have a recording studio at home where I do a lot of my work for my production work and things for TV or whatever comes along. So I was lucky enough that I was able to continue to do some of that work. A lot of my musician friends who were solely live performers, basically had to give up working for all that time. And it was very hard, but I certainly missed the live playing. But I did jump on board fairly early with trying to do what they call quarantine videos, where everybody would record their parts at home and film them, and then we would edit it all together. And so I did one track in particular that involved an 18-piece big band with 4 singers and even dancers. And we put this thing together, a song I wrote and arranged for big band called Jumpin' at Jack's. Jack's is a club I play at down here, Campus Jack's. And I'm there about once a month with my group. And so we just put this tune together, and I did a few things like that, but you can find that one online. And it's called Jumpin' at Jack's. But I did a few things like that just to keep busy. During that time, I also connected with Arturo Sandoval and started doing some work with him, which has culminated in we just finished. We're just now in the process of enjoying his new album that is out that we co-produced, and it's on the charts right now. And so, just tried to stay creative and busy and in contact with people, and there's just some of the things I got to do. So,
well, I know that you're more than thrilled to be out of this, because a lot of things are opening up now, and a lot more freedom. When you said down here, I'm assuming Southern California.
Yeah, I live in Orange County, which is about an hour south of LA, if you're not familiar with the area. But 20 minutes from Disneyland, basically. So I live in South Orange County, and Campus Jacks is a club in Newport Beach that I play at.
Now you're a native of Southern California, right?
I am. Yeah. I've always been in this area, and there have been plenty of times I should have moved to LA, and I would go apartment hunting, and just decided I wanted to stay where I was. So yeah, Orange County boy.
All right, folks, did you hear that? So if you're in Southern California and he's playing somewhere, you got to look him up,
Right on. Yeah.
With respect to, now, is this true? What do you do as a side hobby? Because I'm hearing something that you do as a side hobby.
I do a few things. I like to draw. I don't know if I'm any good, but I like to do it. It's a nice, relaxing thing that I do. And I've got some of my artwork on my website and for sale, and you can, buy prints, or I have a couple pillows with my artwork, things like that. So I'd like little creative things like that. For a little while, up until just a couple months ago, I was doing a little side hustle of doing vintage, basically antiques, but mid-century things like that. So I had a little shop that I was doing, and it wasn't anything I was doing for money. It was just something I could do that was outside of music that I enjoyed, and getting on the hunt for some new item, and then seeing it end up in somebody's hands who was excited to have it. And so I had a little shop I was running for a couple of years, just as a little side hobby. And I have a lot of little interests like that, and I tend to pursue them for a while, give them their season, and then move on to the next thing. So
you're well-rounded. I'm noticing that.
Well, I try to be.
Here you are, you're doing things with drawing, the vintage shop, and it just speaks to how you're just, you get away from music just to get back into it. And maybe you're clearing your head. Maybe you're relaxing and just kind of filtering and just getting some things in order. I like that. That's well balanced. That's a lesson to be learned for everyone, myself included, to take a break.
Well, I do think, for me, most of it is the creative side. It's just wanting to create something. So whether it's drawing or, I don't know, writing articles, which I do, or cooking, or, just anything that has a creative nature to it. Even with the vintage shop, as much as I enjoyed that, what I really loved was when I'd find something that needed to be restored, and I could get my hands on it and try to figure out how to restore it. So for me, it's all about feeding that creative part of me. And I'm one of those people that believes everybody on earth is creative in some way or another, and that, we should all be exploring creativity in our lives. And, my main tool for that is music, but I look for that everywhere else as much as I can. That's a lesson, folks. That's a nugget right there, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I understand that you talking offline, you're teaching a class. Yeah, I teach a music production class at Cal Baptist University in Riverside. And that's where I'm at right now as we're talking, and just in between classes here. And it's basically working with students to help them get used to what it takes to be a music producer, which is, something I've gotten to do a lot of. And I take a little different approach. This semester that we're in right now, we're dealing a lot with the practical aspects of it, and some of the business side of it, because the role of the producer, you're not just the musician or the composer. Like, you have to have knowledge of and oversight. I teach them that the producer is the umbrella over an entire project, which means they need to know something about the music, the songwriting, the musicians, the personnel, booking things, union stuff, recording studios, engineering, mixing, all the stuff that goes into putting a project out has to run through the producer. So, a lot of these students come in, they're just musicians who want to produce, and there's so much to learn outside of just the music side of it. And so I try to give them kind of a well-rounded approach to that. And yeah, so that's what we're doing. Now, what goes back to being well-rounded, and you're giving your gift to others who are wanting to take their gift to the next level. Yeah, I do enjoy that. I spent a good part of my early career being the young guy that was like always the youngest guy in the band or whatever. And I just realized that those years are far behind me. And so I do enjoy working with students now, and, trying to pass on some of the stuff I've learned. Going back to your performances, I like to ask various artists the same question. Is there any performance that just stands out of all the ones that you've done? Is there any one or two that just stands out for whatever reason? Yeah, I have I have a few that do. The first one that pops to mind, and because it was the earliest one that really stands out, was I got to do early in my career. I got to do the Cancun Jazz Festival and be a headliner there, and it was the first time I got a chance to like look out over a sea of, I can't remember if it was 10 or 20,000 people in this audience, but a huge audience, and they knew my music, and I felt like a king. You're on stage doing your own thing, and the crowd is responding. It's just, there's no better feeling, and for an artist to have that kind of platform. And so I remember there was a moment during that show where my sax player kind of leaned over and just said, "Hope you're soaking this all in," and I, part of that is this is a fickle industry, because I went through a few years after that where I couldn't get anything going, so it is about soaking in those moments sometimes and appreciating them, and then, doing what you can to get to the next one. So, and then along the way, there's been a lot of great performances, like just different moments that I've gotten to experience, and I'm very grateful for all of that.
If you just tuned in, I am talking with trumpeter and flugelhorn musician, composer, arranger, and producer, Tony Guerrero. He's allowed us to have a few minutes of his time to share about his past, his present, and I want to talk about the future. Is there any project you're working on right now that we can look forward to?
Well, interesting when you say the future, because the music that really inspired me early on, I think I mentioned earlier, was Chuck Mangione, and so all of my projects, or most of my projects, have had some little hint of that, which is that kind of romantic, Latin, Brazilian, Italian melodies, pretty kind of music that features the flugelhorn. And so I've always done little bits of that. And it hasn't been until this year where I got the opportunity to put together kind of a dream band for me, a 9-piece ensemble that has a cello player and classical guitar and like this instrumentation I'd always dreamt of. And where I've been able to actually present music just in that style for a whole night. And I just had never been able to do that before until this year. And we have our third and, technically our final performance this coming Thursday. And so I'm looking at the possibility of maybe recording a project like that with that group. And, I've always got little things in the pipeline, other projects that I want to do, coming up. I'm working on some music right now for Arturo Sandoval's next thing. And so just, always stuff in the pipeline. That's one project I'm a little excited about, but, always looking for what's next.
Now, from a number of your projects, your albums, how they're just uniquely different and just beautiful, is there any one that stands out to you?
I would say there's two. My 1991 album, Where Secret Garden is From, was very special to me because it was kind of where I felt like I found myself, like I sort of found what I was supposed to do at that time. It's not the album I would do today, but at that time it was a culmination of kind of how I dreamt about seeing myself as an artist. And then coming out of that, I would say there's an album I put out even just recently, an album I put out in 2018, which was all recorded at home. It's all just me on the record. And it wasn't supposed to be that. It was going to be a band project along the lines of this music I was just talking about. And I just never got the album together. But then I realized I had all these recordings that were originally supposed to be demos. And it was all just me at home, just putting the songs together. And I decided to kind of finesse it a little bit, added a couple of other musicians and put that out. And that one speaks to me in terms of the type of music that I really adore, which is, again, that soft, pretty kind of Brazilian Latin stuff. And that one's called Abrazo. Yeah. So I'm looking at, that's the project I'm looking to take into another level and, put it out. But that was kind of a little indie project I put out just because I could. And that's what I want to explore more of. For those who aren't aware of this, like if you're in a recording studio these days, computers allow you to do a lot. So a lot of what you hear are what are called virtual instruments. So it's not really a drummer, but it's a drum machine, or it's not really a bass player. It's a sample of a bass that you're manipulating to fit your song. And so because of that, I'm able to sit at home and I can put together an entire orchestra if I want to, even though it's all kind of computer based. And then, I blend it in with as many real instruments as I can get in there. But that allows me to do a song from top to bottom by myself without having to bring anybody else in, and even just to demo songs and get them realized to a certain level.
And the beautiful thing is when you do that particular project live, there's no problem bringing in the musicians to actually do it.
Right. Yeah.
No problem whatsoever. I've seen a number of videos of you playing live, and we haven't talked about the quintet.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I've got a quintet that I've been working with for several years, and that band is a little bit more on the straight jazz side, but kind of like mid-century jazz, swing kind of stuff, a little bit like the supper clubs in Las Vegas, that kind of vibe. And we've been together for a long time. We just have a lot of fun. And that's the band I get to tour around the country with actress Jane Lynch. We accompany her and Kate Flannery, who was Meredith on The Office. And so with that band, we've been able to play Lincoln Center and Lyric Opera House, like just some great venues. And so we play regularly around town. But then I at least a third of my shows are bands that I'll put together, just other combinations of instruments and musician friends, and, just to make music and make it different. And, I'll do a whole night of a different style of music. And like I said, anything I can to just keep creative and interested.
And that's the lesson that people need to recognize. Keep pursuing, keep pressing in. Don't settle, don't get complacent. And you're definitely doing that, especially with the quintet. But going back to the Abrazo project, when you said that's something that you want to continue doing, I noticed that I had a few songs on that project in constant rotation. And it was one with Love Is Stronger,
oh, nice.
Far Than We with Leslie Page. I had that just constant repeat for a while. And then Morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those two for me, I noticed I just constantly just kept playing.
Yeah.
Then the rest are awesome. That is a wonderful project. So to hear that you're going to continue pursuing that type of project, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I just love that music. And boy, Leslie Page, I love working with singers, certain types of singers. And Leslie is just one of the best I've ever heard. She's got just such a beautiful voice. I work a lot with a singer named Leah Booth, who's one of the best jazz singers in town. Crystal Lewis, who, if you grew up in the church and any time over the last 30 years, she's one of the biggest artists in that, but she's singing jazz now, and been able to produce a couple projects for her. I just connected with a new young singer named Rachel Avalon, who is just like blowing everybody away who's hearing her. And so I love being able to do that and find a way to help get that voice. Some of my favorite records are the singers from the 1950s, the lady jazz singers of that era, like, everybody from Ella to Doris Day to Anita O'Day, and just all the, June Christie, all these great singers that I love. I found a very obscure singer from the 50s named Beverly Kenny, who died very young. Not a lot of people knew about her. And I got so interested in her that I put together a whole website just to kind of, dedicate information to her. And so I just love that sound and that era, and all that to say, yes, Leslie is a great singer, and I was so thrilled with how she sounded on that project.
Nice. Maybe we'll end with that one as we end it. But what I want to do before we go,
sure.
How can people get in touch with you on social media? Are you on social media at all?
I am. You can find me on, my website is probably the easiest because there's links to all of that right there. So you can just go to TonyGuerrero.com, and that's TonyGuerrero. And there's little links there for all my Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff.
That's TonyGuerrero.com, folks. I'm telling you, his website is full of information. A lot of it we haven't touched on. I'm looking forward to your continued project. I'm grateful that you were here today with us. I'd like to have you on again in the future.
Absolutely, anytime.
So what I'm going to do, folks, since he brought up the Abrazo CD project, I'm going to lead with Love Is Stronger, Far Than We with vocalist Leslie Page right here on Sacramento Smooth Jazz.
Another season, we turn away and find a reason. We close our eyes to what we see, but love is stronger far than we. When we are close, the world is singing. disagree. For love is stronger far than we. When hearts are meant for caring and lives are meant for sharing, then we are joined by destiny. For love is stronger far than we. Yes, we may say another season may say goodbye and find a reason, but love decides how things must be. For love is stronger far than we. Destiny. For love is stronger far than we. Yes, we may say another season may say goodbye and find a reason, but love decides how things must be. For love is stronger far than we. Love is stronger far than we. For love is stronger far than we.
Thanks for listening to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. To continue listening to Smooth Jazz 24/7, follow Sac Smooth Jazz on social media and listen by going to sacsmoothjazz.fm.